Excellent. So again, folks, my name is Pete DeCook. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Clive. My colleague Julia McGuire is also here on the call with us this evening. We are recording this so that you can come back to it and get into answers about get answers to your questions about what soil quality restoration is all about, why the city is undertaking this program. We're also recording so that folks who aren't able to join us tonight can come to this resource and get their answers as well. We have a short presentation that we are going to make to answer some of the common questions about soil quality restoration. And after that, we will go into answering your specific questions about the program, such as when we're going to get started, who our contractor is, some of the specifics on how you will communicate with the contractor, how you can choose to do the optional seeding program, and many others. And I may be a little bit start and stop here with the start of the presentation as more folks are coming in and I admit them into the meeting. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So first off, why is the city of Clive pursuing this project? Well, if you're a Clive resident, you know that we take a lot of pride in our natural spaces and a lot of pride in our greenbelt, Wildlife Creek watershed, and all of the little tributaries that come into it as well. It's a major part of our brand. It's a major part of our quality of life. But our creeks and our drainages are changing as our watershed changes. Our watershed, the Walnut Creek watershed, is rapidly urbanizing. You can think of where it starts, where it runs into the Raccoon River down by Waterworks Park in Des Moines, and then extends to the northwest out to Dallas Center. And as more and more of the communities in that area grow, including Clive and Urbandale and Waukee, we're introducing more and more impervious area, which allows water to sort of land and move quickly into our storm sewer intakes. You see a picture of that there on the slide. And then ultimately make its way down to our streams and drainages, where you are starting to see in some areas quite a bit of spreading and cutting. The erosion that you see in the bottom right of that slide is an example there of a new drainage or creek that is doing a lot of encroaching into private property, getting a lot deeper with the channel and a lot wider as well. So it's very important that cities, especially Clive, because we sit sort of at the bottom of our watershed, are very active in managing these stormwater resources so water is conveyed safely, doesn't do damage to property and public infrastructure, and also so that we protect that water quality and can continue to enjoy our waterways as an amenity. In the bottom left picture there, you see a very unfortunate sort of runoff situation into a lake in northwest Iowa. That runoff is oftentimes carrying sediment with extra nutrient and extra phosphorus and other pollutants that can cause a lot of negative externalities. Thank you, Julia, for admitting people as they're coming in as well. So how does stormwater make its way into this combination of intakes on the streets and into our ponds and detention areas, our overland flow areas? It has a lot to do with impervious area. An impervious area at your property, your home, we're usually talking about your driveway, your roof, your patios, your pool decks, all these places where water is going to land and oftentimes run off that hard impervious area and into an intake. So in this picture, you see that water coming off the driveway and off that roof going down the driveway and then into the stormwater intake on the street. Another reason why we have quite a bit of stormwater runoff is because we have soils that have been compacted over time. For better or worse, as the city of Clive was growing, there were a lot of areas in the city where we did a lot of mass grading and a lot of heavy equipment was used to move what was on the soil before it was developed off. A lot of times that topsoil then was removed. And what you're left with are very poor clay-like soils that have been smashed down quite a bit. And that soil, unlike more a healthy soil, acts very much like concrete. It's hard for that water to get in. The pores, the spaces between the parts of the soil are very, very tight. So the water has a hard time getting in. And more often than not, it's sheeting off. And the result is what you see over on the left-hand side of this slide. Turf that struggles to grow. Well, on the right-hand side, turf that comes in and is very patchy. Here you can see what a soil profile looks like with those compacted soils. When it gets tight and there's a lot of clay, as opposed to more organic material, which opens up the spaces for the soil to infiltrate, you end up with a poor performing soil for supporting plants above and also for infiltrating water. So enter soil quality restoration. How does this help you get a better performing soil and infiltrate and catch more water where it lands? First thing you get when you have better soils, you have reduced compaction. You're introducing organic content. In this situation, it's going to mostly be the compost that we're going to be applying. That is that organic content that is going in, reduce the compaction, open up that pore space, and then ultimately improve the rain absorption. The compost also acts as a nutrient. Healthy lawns periodically do need those extra nutrients, and in this case, we're delivering those nutrients using compost. The process, excuse me, the process of getting this done on your yard is also very, very simple. I'm guessing many of you aerate your yards or have done it in the past, or you've walked past a yard that's been aerated. When we're aerating as part of a soil quality restoration program, we're looking to pull a plug that's between 3 and 4 inches deep, though that's going to vary quite a bit based on how moist your soil is. If we try and pull a plug out of a very dry and compacted yard that's too big or too long a plug, we can end up damaging turf. So we just got to make sure that what we pull is appropriate for the yard that we're working on. But say that you're in a pretty good condition with your soil and your turf, it's pretty moist, you're going to be able to pull that 3 and 4 inch plug. And then in the middle picture on this slide, you see folks actually applying the compost. It's going from what looks like a pretty normal, healthy lawn there in the top left corner. And you can see as the compost is going on, it makes it look like the yard is covered with dirt. In this case, though, it's not dirt, it's actually compost. After that application of compost, or it could also happen beforehand as well, depending on sort of the preferences of the landscaper and also of the doing it in accordance with our specs for the program, you can choose to overseed. It's an appropriate time to do that. Overseeding in our program this year is going to be something that you can elect to do. It's not going to be a cost that is shared by your city partner. But we don't want that to stand in the way of folks who do want to use that moment to go and add some additional seed and then do the watering to get it to germinate and take advantage of a good growing opportunity in the early fall here in Iowa. Why is the city doing this as a sort of batch program? We've got, last year, we had about 113 individual property owners who chose to participate. This year, because of funding constraints, we are looking at doing about 80, though we've got many other folks who would join the program in a heartbeat. It's been very, very popular. Part of the reason why it has been popular is because we're taking this batch approach. The city is taking on the responsibility for finding a contractor so that you don't have to do that yourself. The city is putting forward the cost share dollars so that you don't have to worry about paying for it all up front and then getting reimbursed by the city. No, we're going to just bring our money to the table at the very front along with you as the program participants. That adds some more simplicity to the program too. At the end of the day, the interest the city has is getting as many people participating and as many acres of soil quality restoration done as possible. Because when we catch water where it lands, catch stormwater where it lands and infiltrate it, we're putting less stress on our stormwater network, less stress on our drainages, less stress on our ponds, and less stress ultimately on Walnut Creek and the Greenbelt. So on this list on the slide, you see some of the nuts and bolts of how the program is going to work. Just like last year, we're offering 50% funding up to $1,000 per property. I just described some of that streamlined process that we want to bring all of you into as well, make it as easy as possible for you as residents to participate. Our goal is to get 80 properties done this year and help all of you realize significant cost savings compared to doing this project on your own. For 14 of the properties that have been invited tonight to the program and who've indicated interest, those 14 that are in a special sub-drainage area in the Harbach neighborhood, we have a more unique kind of application for you this year that's specifically designed to help the city meet some of our own compliance requirements for stormwater related to the Harbach Boulevard reconstruction. And Julia will have some specific information for all of you about how the program is going to work in your neighborhood. So here's our timeline. We have already been accepting applications from folks who are interested in participating. Thank you to all of you for your very good early communication. It's helped us immensely to know so many people are interested in the program. It gave us an early indication that, yep, we could green light this and get it done here in 2023. The project bidding has now been completed, and if you've received emails from Julia about that, we are very, very happy that the bids we received were extremely competitive. 11 cents a square foot, not including the seed costs, is a wonderful rate, and we're proud to be able to help offer that along with our partners at A+ Lawn and Landscape. The yard measuring that we do using aerial photography has already been completed. Thank you to Julia especially for that hard work. If you receive your information from Julia and this total square footage we're looking at looks a little off, please don't hesitate to reach out to her, and we can arrange a time when we can answer some of those questions either over the phone or email, or if necessary, staff can come out and do a visual inspection as well so we get the right number. But our aerial photography and our some of the mapping tools we use have made it very efficient for us to get to an accurate number for all of your properties. After we've got everything sorted out, though, with all the final measurements, it'll be time to start sending in your payments, and many of you already have, and we appreciate that. We've got about a month between now and when we'd like to get started, and there will be some specific dates that Julia will be referencing later in the presentation when we'll need to have your payment. That's how you will secure your spot in the program. The actual XQR applications will start after Labor Day, and we expect that we will be able to complete all 80 of those applications in the month of September. That's a really great time for those of you who choose to do the overseeding to get a good germination with your seed. And I'll leave it to our friends at A+ to explain more about that and some of their experience doing SQR applications in September. And they can present on that later on in our discussion this evening. When you receive your proposal information from Julia, you're going to see a measurement of the area that could be treated as we've determined it in the aerial photography. You'll see us multiply that times the 11 cents for the per square foot. Then you'll have a total cost. Divide that by 2, or if it's over $2,000, you'll know that your max award will be $1,000, but that should only apply to a few folks this year because we did get such a competitive bid from A+. But divide it by 2 and you'll see your half. Then you'll complete excuse me, your paperwork and send in your payment, and you'll be ready to go with us in September. With that, I do believe tonight we've got a representative from A+ who's on the call with us. I got a lot of folks who are in the meeting, though. Ethan, I believe, was going to join us. Ethan Dykstra, or maybe Ken Irwin, or Ethan or Ken on the call with us this evening, or one of the other teammates from A+. If you could use the raise hand function on your Zoom screen, and I can bring you in as a co-host of our meeting. Julia, did you see either Ethan or Ken on the participant list? Okay. Well, no worries, because we've reviewed this with them quite a bit. A+ Lawn and Landscape has their primary offices in Des Moines, but they do also have a facility here in Clive. They've been doing soil quality restoration for many years. And in fact, we're also put in a very competitive bid in Johnston for the city of Johnston. They're undertaking a similar program this year along with Polk City and the city of Grimes. So we feel confident that we've got a responsible bidder. We're very happy again with the price that they were able to offer. One of the other services that they are able to provide as a somewhat larger company doing this work is a really robust customer service sort of automation tool. When we get your information, we will be sharing all your preferred phone number and email address with A+ so that they can plug you into that program that they use so that they can route their way through the city of Clive efficiently. They aspire to do about 8 of these, somewhere between 5 and 8 of the properties per day once they get going, which will allow them to, over the 3-week period roughly, to get through the entire city of Clive 3 to 4 weeks period to get through the city of Clive and get everybody's applications completed. But it really does depend on them being able to use some of their automated communications tools so that they can let you know when they're going to be at your property, and then you can communicate back to them to confirm that that works also for you. All the contact information if you need to reach out to them by phone, email information if you'd prefer to reach out to them by email. Julia, anything else you'd add about how A Plus is going to be
Sean
communicated?
Edwards is here if you want to get
good.
Sean.
Good. Oh, I see it. No,
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry about that, Sean. For you here, Sean. Julia, if you could see Sean before I can and can make him a co-host, that'd be great.
Hello?
Hi, Sean.
Hello. Sorry, Ethan's little guy got under the weather, so I'm substituting in.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Sean, why don't you tell us a little about tell our audience here a little bit about your company and how you all like to do your customer engagement.
Yeah, this will be our 36th year, so we've been around. I started the business, and we're excited to be part of this program because it's so needed. And you know, we'll first aerate the lawn with we'll trim the lawn with one type of aerator, and then we'll use a stand-on aerator to do the rest of the lawn, just because the walk behinds just don't penetrate as heavy as a stand-on can. And so we usually trim the edges if there's a fence or some of those type of things. And you know, that's a great time to seed. We can seed at that time, and then usually after aeration and seed, then is when we have, you can see in the right corner, the it's a big spreader that allows us to put the compost down. And that's in the trailer. We use a trailer that actually similar to that. So we won't be pouring a bunch of compost on the concrete or in your yard or anything. The trailer will actually put the compost right into our spreader, that blue spreader down there. So there's a little mess, but not very much on that end of it. And you were definitely right. The softer the soil, the deeper it goes on that end of it. So rain helps, or watering definitely helps. We'll be emailing the day before we come out. We'll give you a 1 to 2 day. Usually we aerate the day before, and then we compost the next day. We try to have the aeration done so the compost people don't have to wait, so we can knock it out as fast as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. I know Julia's going to get to some FAQs about things that property owners should do in advance of when your team shows up. But in your experience, Sean, are there a couple of really important things that folks should consider in advance of when you arrive and you do it, and then maybe some of the key things that homeowners should be prepared to do after the application's been done?
Yeah, like I said, for best results, you know, having the water or having the lawn watered, just so we can get a better plug. The second thing is, if you have an irrigation system or a lighting system, to mark the heads or the lighting wires. Usually irrigation systems, the wiring and the pipe, they're plenty deep enough if it's done correctly. It's just the heads. We usually stay a good 6 to 8 inches off of the curb, or off of the sidewalk, just because the machine, if it would hit the sidewalk or any concrete, it will bust it. So the edges are left about a foot apart, 8 foot apart or away from that. So a lot of the heads along the edge aren't as necessary to flag as the ones in the middle. And wiring for night lighting or wiring for dog fences will need to be flagged or painted. It depends on how it was installed. A lot of dog fences, it seems like they don't go very deep. Lighting usually is deeper. I know we install lighting and we usually go 6 inches at least, just for the aeration reason. Afterwards, you definitely want to water it in. You don't want it to sit there for multiple days because of suffocation to the grass, because it is down there heavy. Maybe a light raking if needed, but usually a good watering will push it right in and won't have a problem. So you don't want to wait 3-4 days on it sitting there. It suffocates that grass plant.
Mhm. And the spec that we're shooting for here is about 1/2 to 3/4 inch of compost application on top of the turf. Sean, have you found that it helps if folks get a shorter mow on the grass before you apply, or your experience has it been? What has your experience been?
Yeah, no, and that is good. It's not necessary at all. When it's shorter, it falls through better. So, we're going to be putting 3/4 down, but you won't have 3/4 sitting on the grass because it would just suffocate it. It works its way down into those holes and into the open areas. So when it's mowed a little shorter, it's able to pin it to get down to the soil faster. When you water it, it gets down there faster also. So a good mowing will help move it down faster, or it'll take less water actually to get it to move down. So a good mowing, but we're a lot of times only able to give a day or two notice because of weather and stuff like issues like that. So sometimes we might try to give a 2-day notice, but a lot of times people have things going on, so it's not ideal to get them mowed right away.
And then after the application, Sean, is your experience is it best for folks to wait a certain amount of time before mowing again, or are they able to get back to some of more normal activities pretty quick?
You don't want to bag after this just because you would be taking some of the compost with it, and that's what we're putting in. So I would strongly recommend not bagging. It's best to mow before, but afterwards it doesn't matter. It's just a little messier though if you haven't given it a good watering and worked its way down. But it's not a major thing.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I last summer when we were working on this for the first year of the program, I was going out, and city staff will continue to come out and want to engage with all of you as well after you've had your application to answer any other questions and generally see what your experience has been like. You're probably going to get quite a few neighbors asking you about what you're doing to your yard as well, and we're happy to help answer their questions. But those first few days when you're walking on your compost, you'll want to get it wet so it doesn't obviously blow away, but it's going to track in with you into the house a little bit. So having a pair of shoes that you're ready to leave in the garage or on the porch before you start walking inside after you've been working in your yard is a good plan. Because compost, it will integrate quickly, but it does get a little dusty out there. With that, why don't we get into, I'm going to pass it over to Julia and we'll start answering some additional FAQs. And then we'll get to the questions quickly that you all have answered, put into the chat.
Yeah, thanks.
Julia, take it away.
Yep, thanks. And I hope, Sean, please stay on here because we do have some questions specifically for, I think, a contractor to answer. But I am going to change my view here a little bit.
Do you need to share your screen, Julia?
I will share my screen in a second here.
Okay.
I know you all want to know how to move ahead here, other than attending this meeting. See, I do want to say, virtual pat on the back to everybody. I'm thrilled to have this many people interested in a treatment for a big collective impact. I think that's great. There are basically 2 things that you need to get on the work list with A+, unless you're one of those 14 people in the Harbach neighborhood, and I will let you know in the message exactly what you need to do, but everyone, including the Harbach people, will need to get this easement document. So it's normally 8 pages long, and this just gives us permission to enter your property, gives A+ permission to enter your property. So again, we're just going through the pages. But what I need you to do here is date and sign and then print your name and then put your address on here. Then you're gonna email it back to me. I also need to make sure that exhibits A and B are correct, because if we look at exhibit A, so let's say this is, I don't know who this is. Let's say this is your address. Please make sure that I have a matching lot, not the neighbor's house. So this is lot 24. And hopefully that's the shape that matches what your yard actually is. So double check me on that. The other thing is that last page, page 8, for this particular yard, here's the total square footage and this cost at 11 cents per square foot. The city's paying 50% with a limit of $1,000, and then it shows the amount that the property owner owes if they choose to join the program. I have had, like Pete said, we've already had a handful of people turn in all their paperwork. I've heard from 2 people that the payment link did not work. If it doesn't work for you, just send an email to Water Resources at cityofclive.com, and I should be able to send that off to you really quick. Let me show you one other thing here. It looks like this. So I want you to see what the screen looks like when you click that payment link. You're going to get, there it is. So you're going to get a payment link just like if you set up your water billing. This is the same kind of thing, but it's got this offer number. I need you to make sure you get that offer number, and that's right at the top. And it's got the last one we looked at. Let me see if I can find that one again. It's at the top of that offer or invoice is right at the top there. So I think it's a pretty easy thing. Hopefully that works well. Our deadline is Monday, August 28th at 4 p.m. Or we're just going until we get 80 enrollments. When you saw the offer, sometimes you're going to have to round up or you're going to have to round down. There were also questions on how we got the areas for the total square foot. I can certainly show you an example of that right now. Corey in our IT department helped with that a lot. So let me find an example of that. So all of this was done from my desk. We have not had anyone go out into your yards and do any measurements. This is what this house looks like here. You can see on the lower left, the total area that I'd outlined here. I tried to leave out everything that I could tell was not turf grass. So I left the driveway out, left the garage out, circles of trees, garden beds, I left those out. I did include the rights of way, that space in between the curb and the sidewalk, those are included. The feedback we've gotten is that it just looks really funny to have some of your grass be a different color than the grass in the right of way, and it's something that you mow anyway. So the right of way area is included in your totals. So you can see again in the lower left-hand area, the square footage here for this particular address is 10,187.87 square feet. And again, if there's something that you've had added, like a patio, or you had another lane on your driveway or a shed, if you've had that put in since last fall, let me know, because we will need to go and measure your yard in person. We haven't done the next flyover yet. So we are using a slightly older map. So if you do have questions about the area, just again, let me know. Hopefully everything is going to match your address in Exhibit A, the map in Exhibit B, you're using your offer number. Let me see if there's anything else that I can think of right now. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I guess we can try to move into questions.
Yep, let me pull up our presentation here again real quick, Julia, and we'll zip through those just to make sure we didn't miss anything here.
Perfect.
All right. Julia, you're able to see that screen?
Yes.
Great. So pre-application again, mark those sprinkler heads, mark where your dog fence is at. We did hear about the mowing lawn short to get a little bit better integration of the compost. Make sure you pick up that pet waste, and having a little bit softer soil is going to help us pull a better plug. Afterward, we want to make sure that if you need to mow, it sounds like you're able to, but if you want a little more time for that compost integration, waiting is fine. Watering a little bit so it stays down and gets integrated as opposed to blowing away. And if you do have those areas that look thick or crusted or compacted, you don't want those sitting on top of the turf and suffocating it. Taking a garden rake and just loosening it up, fluffing it up is going to get you a better result. Compost facts. Compost is not dirt, and you should not expect that it's going to level out any kind of bumpy or low spots that you have in your yard. The compost that we do have is from Metro Waste Authority. It is going to add nutrients to your turf, and so that means everything that's there and benefiting from extra nutrients is going to get a little shot of adrenaline and do well, which will include your weeds if you have some weeds in your yard. So this isn't going to eliminate your weeds, but it is going to create conditions for a good, healthy stand of turf. Also important to note that the compost that we get does not include any manure. This is all the organic content that comes from your yard waste bags that you put out that Metro Waste picks up for us here in Clive. Some other points here, and these were some points we came up with when we were doing the program last year. For your spot treatments of weeds and any other fertilizing that you're going to do, probably best to back off on that separate fertilizing that you do with a synthetic fertilizer before we put the compost, so you don't over fertilize and end up with some tough conditions for your turf. You can continue to do some of their spot treatment for your weeds, but you should check on the product label there for whatever you're using as your weed treatment to double check to make sure it's not going to have an adverse effect on any overseeding that you choose to do as part of this program. The overseeding again is going to be paid for this year 100% by the property owner, and you will work out your arrangements there directly with A+ if you'd like them to do that seeding work. And that will be a separate invoice and agreement that you sign with A+. We do recommend watering to incorporate that compost, and you definitely will need to do that to get germination if you choose to seed. The amount of time it takes you to get to germination, the amount of watering times it takes to water to get that good integration is going to vary a little bit yard to yard. I can tell you in my own experience when I've done soil quality restoration on my yard, it's not taken a ton. We wanted to be sensitive this year to the program participants who were last year. Some folks were just a little surprised by the amount of water that they were putting on in the water bill, and so we didn't want to set folks up this year to feel like they had to do that. We do want folks to know though that some watering is going to be necessary, and you will see that reflected on your utility bill when you receive it in the following month. This year, I'm grateful to say that I don't think that we're going to have to worry, hopefully, about too many dormant lawns. It has been a delightful start to August and into the middle of the month. We've had some good rain, and the entire city right now is looking really, really healthy and green, which is great to see. But if you do have a yard that's particularly dry right now, you don't have to worry about this applying the compost and the aerating damaging your turf. Turf is just dormant, and with the watering and with the compost in some cool conditions, you'll see that bounce back. Okay, let's hop right into the questions. Julia, why don't you take us through?
Yep, that sounds good. So we're having a lot of questions about these shallow utilities, like internet, like dog fences. If they are buried in the last couple of years, if it's an internet, I might have records that I could find. You'll have to let me know. MetroNet will not be marking for you, and they're supposed to be 6 inches below the ground, and we don't think the aerator is going to reach those. But again, I can, if it's, again, something, a cable drop that's been done to your house in the last 2 years, we probably have records of that, if they filed with us. We've got some questions about fall service, Sean. Do we need to stop fertilizing or have other fall services before and after the SQR treatments?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is heavy in nutrients, and it definitely will green up your lawn, and it will definitely grow, make the grass grow, and it'll make the weeds grow too, by the way, if you have weeds, because you are making the lawn healthier. You know, if you've had an application, and I send out something, hey, we're going to be out in the next couple days, we would prefer at least to then maybe we need to be notified, and we'd probably push you back a couple weeks. We do use, you know, our company, we do use all slow release fertilizers, so we could do it back to back, and it really wouldn't hurt it. But other companies don't all use slow release fertilizers. So if they used a straight urea and then we came out there would be quite a bit, you know, you could have a little browning. It wouldn't kill it, but it would maybe stress it a little bit. So depending on the company you use, I think on the safe side, let us know and we'll push you back a couple weeks on the fertilizing. But usually if we do something with our customers, we'll put it down and or do this application, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of them. You know, we'll do it, and whenever the next application is due, we usually just do it. We might push it back a week or something if we've just done it, just to kind of feed it a little slower, but it shouldn't have too much of a problem, especially if it's cool and wet. You won't have a problem at all. So just work with us on the application, if, you know, depending on the company, and we can push it back. I hope that explains that well enough.
Sure. We have another question about gypsum, asking if a light coating of gypsum might help with thatch and enrich the soil, and when is an appropriate time to apply that?
Yeah, you can, you know, the fall's a good time to do that. It helps the soil. You're amending the soil is what you're doing. We're amending the soil quite a bit here. You know, and usually we do soil tests to see if it's really needed or not on that. We don't just put that down. So, but to loosen the soil, this is the manual way, mechanical way to do it. So you probably could skip that this fall.
Perfect. And then I don't know if you know the answer about overseeding. Sean, has there been discussion, or is that something that depends on the kind of seed that the property owner might request?
Yeah, no, this is a perfect time to seed. Most people don't realize the best seeding time that Iowa State recommends is mid-August through September, not in November, because that seed you want to put out there, you want it to germinate and pop before the cold weather comes. There is dormant seeding that people do, but a lot of that seed blows away or rots before it comes up in the spring. So this is a perfect time to seed. Like I said, the last 2 weeks of August, all of September, sometimes a week or two into October. If it's a sunny area, we use a mixture for sun. If it's a shady area, there's a different mixture, obviously. Some seeds take more sun to grow than others for their photosynthesis to grow. But we can do that. We can recommend seed for you to buy and do at the same time. When we aerate is when you want to seed it before we do the compost. So it should be us aerating, you seeding, and then us composting is the steps that it should happen. And that's usually why we aerate maybe a day ahead of us composting. That will give the homeowner, if they want to do it, time to do that. or we can do that for them.
Okay, and then I'm guessing A plus when they get all of your information, homeowners, when I get your agreement and your payment, I will send that to A plus, and then you two can work it out on if seating is a service that you want to get from them. Again, that's something separate. So we are also having questions about getting portions of the yard done. We have been open to that, Pete. I think we just need to take a look at it with you.
Yeah, that would
Is there
be,
anything else?
we just would want to manage that on a case-by-case basis. And the best way is to initiate the process is to email waterresources@cityofclive.com, and then we can be in touch.
We're also getting questions about signing papers. So there's really not the best way if you don't have a way to sign electronically. If you want to come into the office, we can print, have you sign, and then scan it if that's something that is easier for you to do. We had electronic signatures last year, and it wasn't adopted worldwide. So I think whatever we got, whatever you have to deal with your software at home, we're trying to meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
So again, just get a hold of us and we'll try to work it out.
Sort of building on that, I see we just got a question about some folks who we noted had already sent in their payments because they had received documentation from us. We're doing this sort of all today in one big fell swoop, so we give folks as much time as possible. And so Julia has been very, very quickly, along with some of our other colleagues, getting the documents all together, personalized for each applicant, along with the measurements. And so it's in this sort of 24-hour window we're in right now, from this morning until tomorrow morning and into the afternoon, that everybody who has been on the list will have their opportunity to review it and then send in payment. We didn't want to disadvantage folks, but at the same time, wanted to see if we could get as much of these out to folks tonight so that if there were questions about the documentation and about the payment process, we could answer those for you while you actually have, many of you have something to look at. If you haven't received it yet, we apologize. You will be getting that here in a matter of hours. Probably certainly by the end of tomorrow, we'll have those all out the door.
Yep. And so we have a question, Sean, about the machinery, if there are multiple gates and fences.
Yeah. Hopefully it is a machine. So we need a 30-inch gate to get through the area, or that will be an issue for the spreader and for the machine. If there's concrete going all the way down to the backyard and there's no way to enter, we won't be able to do it also unless they can take a portion of a fence down. But if you can't get, I say, if you can't get a small riding lawnmower to your backyard, you're going to need to figure, we can't either. So that might give you a good idea on an example.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit more about the compost product itself. I know you had a good description. If you can maybe describe what it's like. So you said we don't use it to fill in spots. Is it fluffy? Does it smell? I'm trying to go through all so I've also gotten emails with these other questions. So if I could just have a little bit more info and why we're using this, what are our standards, all that good stuff.
Sure. Sean, I'm going to leave it to you as somebody who's much more informed on these things than I am to take a first crack at giving us the scientific definition of compost.
Yeah, it's dark, obviously. It really doesn't have that much of a smell. And it's matter, so it's light, it's kind of fluffy. You can rake it or whatever. It's heavier than a leaf, obviously, but it's not as heavy as dirt. Would you think that's kind of close, Pete, to describe that?
Yeah, that's definitely what my lived experience was. Where does it come from? Again, it comes from all of what the material you put into your yard waste bags and toters that then get picked up by Metro Waste. And then the process of turning all of that into compost is pretty, it's a science. It really is a pretty involved process because you want to make sure that it's breaking down appropriately. And as it does that, it generates a lot of heat and it decomposes it. At the end of the day, you want to have certain qualities of that decomposed material so that it does have the ability to deliver the nutrients to your yard, and those nutrients can be used by the plant material that you've got on your turf. So that is, I'm not a soil scientist myself, so I apologize. I can't give you a better definition, but exactly like Sean said, the lived experience of handling it, it feels fluffy, it feels loose. When it's applied, it's dry. When you put water on it, it definitely does feel wet, and in your hands, it does feel like a little bit more like damp soil, but it quickly kind of releases some of that water as well. It doesn't stay muddy and goopy like if you were to put a bunch of water into topsoil.
Very good. This last question, I'm not sure who answers this. It says, could you discuss the dumpster it shows on the lawn? So I don't know if there's a slide that maybe had.
I think that may have been the spreader, Sean, that the person was referring to, the big metal kind of.
Like a big funnel, maybe? Is that the one?
Oh, yeah. I think it was the big container. Yeah.
Yeah, so the trailer that we put the product into kind of tilts up, and then there's a wheel in there like a roller, and it actually rolls, pulls the compost into a conveyor belt, and then that conveyor belt runs to one end, and it dumps it into that spreader, which is a big. It's basically it looks like a big wheelbarrow with a motor on it, and it's actually plastic, and it pours it right into that spreader, and we hit a button, it fills it up, and hit a button, it turns off, and then the wheelbarrow that is mechanical, with the engine, we hit the gas and we get to the lawn, and then when we get to the lawn, we hit another button and it opens up a gate, which then throws it in like a spreader form across the lawn.
And then afterward, because inevitably when you're throwing it all around, you do have a little bit of overspread as well, then teams will be able to go back into those areas and do with a little bit of sweeping and raking, be able to sweep that back out of areas where it may have over broadcast as well.
Yeah, and in the we usually use a blower, just so you know, to get it off the drives, because when you use a broom, it is real soft. And what we experience with a broom, we kind of we dirty the driveway up more with a broom than if we just blew it off. In the garden area, it's totally fine. It's not going to hurt anything in the garden. People put this in the gardens. Your landscape beds, it really doesn't hurt there either. It's sometimes hard to blow off the landscape if it's mulch, and you can't broom it off either. So it's not perfect, but you can get it pretty precise area, and then we just do a blower for that small areas.
Yeah, that's excellent. I see we have some questions from one person about how did people find out about the program? So a few different ways. Last year and this year as well, we have our program page up on cityofclive.com, and we feature this in the utility newsletter and in our social media spaces. But I think the most popular way that folks got on the list this year or stayed on the list from last year was when they reached out to the city directly because they saw a sign in their neighbor's yard saying, "What is this?" Well, this was a neighbor who chose to participate in the program last year. And we asked permission if we could put a sign up, and we would like all of you also, if it's all right for you, to give us permission to put a sign up as well that tells people what's going on, because the Clive City Council and staff really want to make this an annual program. We have hundreds and hundreds of acres in the city that would be appropriate for soil quality restoration. And the more we all do this, we get great results for our turf, and we also get water that's caught and infiltrated where it lands before it gets conveyed down to ultimately Walnut Creek. That's a win for everybody. And so the council and the staff are looking forward to sort of operationalizing this program year every year. But the best time for us to do our storytelling and recruit for the coming year is when we're actually doing the applications in this case, this September, and put that yard sign up with a QR code. Folks come by, they could snap it, and they can immediately get to the program page where they can add themselves to the list for consideration in coming years. But if you've got family and friends who are interested and they haven't heard about it, send them our way. If they live in Clive, we want to talk to them. Julie, do we have other questions?
Yeah, one just came in from that, it says, was A+ the same contractors last year? No, last year we did not have A+. I recall in our neighborhood, the compost was brought into the neighborhood near the homes and left until it was spread a few days later. Is that how it will be delivered this year? So Sean did say there would be a crew in to aerate one day, and then the next day the spreading would occur. But I'm not sure how you're banking up the compost. Sean, are you still on?
Yep. Yeah, no, we've decided, you know, that's kind of a messy form. It's sitting there, and if it rained, it became real messy. And we started that way years ago, doing it that way. We invested in this trailer, and so now at our location, we'll have a semi-load of the compost come in regularly. We'll load from A+ into our trailer. So it's never going to be in a neighborhood sitting in case it rains, or, you know, once it's on that concrete, it's always dirty. So it shouldn't really touch much concrete. It should go from our yard into the trailer onto the grass.
That's fantastic. The other advantage from the city's perspective is if we do have compost that's sitting like that and it does rain, it's likely to start running off those hard surfaces into our storm sewer, which creates all kinds of problems for everybody who depends on that network. And so it's very important to the city that we have a contractor like A+ that is committed and has the resources to move it in a way so that it stays high quality when it's delivered to their yard, covered, protected, and then as it's brought out to the city, it's not in a place where it could somehow compromise the flow and the performance of our storm sewer network.
Yeah, I also really appreciate that. And I guess there have been questions about the price of overseeing it. I don't think we have the right people on the call to help us with that. We have been working with Ken and Ethan from A+, and I think that's something that we'll just find out as time goes by and we, you know, roll through all the names.
Yeah.
We just don't have information on that right now.
Yep. That's something that A+ has been very, very good. So in our initial conversations, talking about how they want to work with individual homeowners and meet sort of their needs, particularly whether that's because they have a shady spot or a sunny spot or want a different type of seed. I think that all of those can be conversations that are appropriate to have with A+. There was a question I saw here about how did we get to 11 cents a square foot, and did that yield a better opportunity for Clive residents compared to doing this separately with another group? I answer that as I think yes, and I've got pretty definitive data point on that. The city did have to go through a competitive bidding process to award this contract because it is meets a certain financial threshold. The bids came in, we had, I believe it was 5 bids that came in, and the 3 lowest bids came in at 19 cents, 12 cents, and 11 cents a square foot. So we had excellent competition among really good providers. That's not something, if you're not working at the scale that we are when we're bringing all these property owners together, that you would necessarily be able to replicate, just going one off to a provider. So I think that we are offering something from a price standpoint that is very, very good, very competitive. And we appreciate, again, A+ putting such a good high quality bid out there. We're also offering something that would be hard to replicate if you weren't part of this group of neighbors doing it together.
And Pete, I would like to mention, because the city's involved and the payment is guaranteed, and it's such a large amount, our price, if you called us and just did your the one-off lawns, which we will do 200-300 other lawns this year. I think we already have well over 100, and by the time the fall ends, we'll probably have somewhere 200 to 300 more on top of this. Those prices are more expensive than what the city of Clive got, quite a bit. So yes, it's a much better deal.
Okay, so I do want to note, if you residents know you have shallow utilities, you can let me know, and I can make a note and pass that on to A+. In general, the property owner is responsible for marking all of those shallower utilities. There is a question that says, are residents that did not get in last year getting a priority? The answer is no. Everybody was, again, like P was saying, they were collected, we collected everyone's names, they entered until I think the end of June is when they, or the end of May or the end of June. We collected,
Mhm.
and then we just, whatever order we got names in, that's how people are getting offers sent to them. So we shut the door on 2023 like a couple months ago.
Right. Our experience last year is that before we sent offers out, we were highly oversubscribed. And when people saw numbers, there was a drop off. And then as people started hearing about the program, we were able to add them in sort of in the course of doing the work. This year, we expect to see a similar dynamic, but because we have so many people on the wait list or on the list already, there'll be those who are getting in early, many who fall off. I think we're going to have quite a bit of space, though, to accommodate a lot of folks this year. But if we aren't able to get you this year, we want you to stick with us because our intention is to continue to do this year over year.
I'm not seeing any more questions. I
Okay.
think we got them all.
Okay. Well, we're coming up at the top of the hour. If you do have additional questions, please email waterresources@cityofclive.com. Again, thank you to our partners at A+. We're looking forward to a very productive September working with all of you, and to all the residents as well. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for your interest in this program, and thank you for being good stewards of your lawns and paying attention to what it means to be a good steward of our water resources here in the city of Clive. Again, if you have questions, waterresources@cityofclive.com or visit cityofclive.com. We will post the recording of this meeting at the top, on our website, cityofclive.com. And we look forward to being out in the yards with all of you here later on this fall. Thanks so much, folks.